Are we gonna make a big announcement about this, about crossing?
I'm taking down the laundry, so it's not going to be in the shot, and Ben's busily filming it.
Where are we going, Ash?
It's taken a while, but Ben has finally convinced me that we should, and we are, going to start our second circumnavigation. So that's like a mouthful. We are going to start our second circumnavigation. We're going to the South Pacific, guys. It's happening. I didn't expect to do that so soon. I am not gonna lie. Ben, what did it take?
So it's true. It's true. We're gonna sail around the world.
Again. It's been a lot, actually, and there is a lot of debate about, really on my end, Ben wanted to go, but there's been a lot of debate on my end about going. I've been back and forth a few times. I hadn't planned on doing an ocean crossing this big again so soon, but after Ben flew to New Zealand and back in something about that 52 hours, and I want to be involved in some parts of the build and with the children, it's a heck of a long way to go from our new boat build.
That is how long I've been traveling. I started this stopwatch when I left New Zealand, and I've been literally traveling 53 hours to get back to the British Virgin Islands. If you're new here, welcome. Behind the scenes, we've been focused on designing a brand new vessel, an aluminum expedition catamaran. This boat is designed to take us to places few have ever been. A vessel purpose-built for exploration. We believe we've identified the perfect place to build it, but it's half a world away. The solution? Sail halfway around the world. This German flag. Wieso haben wir eine deutsche Flagge auf unserem Boot? Ich erkläre das gleich, aber erst erkläre ich, wieso ich in einer anderen Sprache rede. So, I guess we're headed to French Polynesia, where French is the main language, and that is a problem for me because I don't speak French. Je ne parle pas français. That's about the extent of my vocabulary. Maybe I have merci, beaucoup. I don't know if beaucoup is a word. Au revoir. Bonjour. That's it. That's all I remember from high school. I think my high school teacher gave me a D because French is mandatory in high school. He felt sorry for me, and I was able to graduate. But here's where Babel changes the game. It's one of the top language learning apps in the world, making real-life conversations in a new language feel like a breeze. With Babel, I've started tackling French with intuitive lessons designed by real language teachers. And guess what? It's scientifically proven that you can start speaking a new language in just 3 weeks. It's going to take us 3 weeks to sail from Panama, North America, all the way across the Pacific to French Polynesia, Marquesas. In those 3 weeks, I'm going to be using Babel to learn French on my night shifts. Now for the exciting part, you can join me on this language learning journey and get 60% off on a Babel subscription by clicking on the link below in the description. So back to the flag. The reason our boat is registered in Germany is because we bought the boat off a German family. That family had the boat registered in Germany. And me being a German citizen and a Canadian resident, I was able to keep the boat in Germany and transfer that registration for a whopping 15 euros, and it would take a whopping 1 week. So it was super easy to do, and that's why we fly the German flag, partially because I'm German, partially because it was easy, and partially because it really doesn't matter where you register your boat.
Ultimately, there was a lot of things that have convinced us to finally do this. We loved the South Pacific. We absolutely loved it. It's some of our happiest memories and funnest times from our last circumnavigation. And I'm really looking forward to going back to some of those places again. So that was an easy thing. Like, I know it's nice, but it's a long ways away.
It's a long ways. So what are we looking at to cross?
Hey, hi, Mr. Ben. Okay, he just approved your my visit. Okay, he called visit. So I think by 5, 6 o'clock, the documents go into the other office. Then I can call to separate the day. Okay, yesterday I'm sending to you one link for make that small payment. Okay, don't forget. Okay. Thank you very much.
Did you forget to send the payment?
Yeah, who's that?
That's the agent we're going to work with for the Panama Canal crossing. The Panama Canal right now has a lot longer wait times than normal. They're not letting as many boats through. So last time we didn't work with an agent at all, and this year we've chosen to work with an agent. I think it's going to really simplify the process and make it a lot easier for us, and not be traipsing around Hell's Half Acre with 2 children in tow. But yes, this is that is our agent, and he's booking us dates to go through the Panama Canal once Ben remembers to send him that small payment, which isn't that small, just so we're clear.
The small payment is $400 US.
That was 500.
500, but it's going to be about 3,000 US to cross the Panama Canal, and that is a lot of it's just fees, you know.
Depends on how big your boat is too.
Yeah, depends on your boat size and stuff. But right now the Panama Canal is backed up by, what are we, middle of February, say? So they're backed up over a month and a half right now. So the first date is going to be April. So that's kind of when we're crossing the Panama Canal.
That's a bit late, so we're gonna like go through and go.
Yeah.
Last time we hung out in Panama for a while, and we have no intention of doing that this
No
time.
intention of hanging out Panama. To all the Panamanians, we love
Panama
your...
City is gorgeous and wonderful, but we're just gonna get going. So it's been a while since I've dug these books out. I've got the World Voyage Planner, World Cruising Routes. Really, if you're going to buy one, you only need this one, the Routes. They're fantastic references if you're looking at just sort of where to go and can go anywhere. We're probably going to be leaving from Panama. Then we might take a pit stop in the Galapagos, or we may not. We might just go to the Marquesas. There's also this option like Easter Island. We know a lot of people that kind of jumped down the coast here and then went over to Easter Island and then went to the Gambiers and then up to the Marquesas after. That I think is a really cool route as well. It's quite long, like it's a long stretch to here. I don't know, we may do that, we may not. Yeah, I've been going through it because we're kind of trying to decide what to do. I mean, we've done the milk run. Let's talk milk run. Like, it's basically Panama, sometimes Galapagos, Marquesas, Societies, through to like the Cook Islands and a couple maybe islets in between that are there, then over to Fiji. It's winter in the northern hemisphere, it's summer down there, and it's cyclone season. So some people choose to ride out cyclone season in Fiji. Sometimes they have cyclones, so it's not always the greatest. And some people choose to take that passage down to New Zealand, which can be a bit awful, to put it lightly. Sometimes it can be great, but it usually has a bounce factor that is fairly uncomfortable. So yeah, a lot of people head to New Zealand, some people head to Newcastle, Australia, Papua New Guinea. It's like there's a lot of options. But I was looking at like what are circular routes looking like going up to the Line Islands and Micronesia and Palau, and we did that once. This is what you end up with after you've gone around the world, and although this is only in the equator, we really haven't gone north or south, but we're waiting for our next boat.
A lot of the circular routes kind of take advantage of light winds, like contrary winds, and in order to do that you have to be able to sail upwind and or motor. So with the Nahoa 55, we've been talking to our naval architect, and we've figured out we can motor for 18 days at 5 knots on one engine. So that gives us a range of over 2,000 nautical miles.
Without jerry cans.
Without jerry cans. And, you know, you don't want to do that, but in order to get from one, you know, trade wind season or trade wind area to another without having to deal with cyclones or hurricanes or typhoons, you sometimes just have to motor for like a week. And that's how we're going to do it on the new boat.
Yeah, and the new boat is also going to be a lot more set up for going to further north into latitudes where the climate isn't so tropical. And Nahoa really is best suited for a tropical climate. We have the most fun in tropical climates on Nahoa, although we have dabbled in like Cape Town weather in winter, and it has been also very fine living aboard Nahoa. It wasn't too cold, but it is for sure, it gets chilly.
It gets more like camping in the colder climates on this boat.
Yeah, and our new boat will have a heater, and we're quite excited to, you know, be able to kind of live more comfortably with that space. So one of our big decisions about deciding to cross the Pacific was that the season that we have left for cruising here in the Caribbean is dwindling. and we want to keep going for more than a year. Now, 100% you can go north, you can go south to get out of the storm belts. Different parts of the world have different storm seasons, or cyclone seasons, or hurricane seasons at different times of the year. And this is a really great diagram that shows sort of when tropical storms might occur and what time of year. So, for example, here we are in the Caribbean, and in the Caribbean area, it's usually June to November for tropical cyclones. And then if we look here, the cyclone season that hits sort of through the South Pacific and into Australia is from November to April. So you see how it switches? So you can get a whole nother 6 months of cruising in sort of the off season if you decide to cross an ocean. But it is a long way, guys. It's not insignificant. Cruising routes, if you only buy one book, is probably the better book to buy, but otherwise you can buy this World Voyage Planner. And this is what I was playing with the other night and looking at and just laughing, because look at the routes that they come up with. There's circular routes in the Pacific Ocean, and it talks about the different routes. And this is what we were just explaining a second ago about possibly doing a route through Micronesia, but contrary to the predominant wind conditions. So if you stay close enough to the equator, it's really, really light, so you can sort of motor sail into them, an island hop along the way. And that's a good way to get east if you're trying to do a circular route. And I looked at this and I think these are fantastic. But then I was like, total distance, 14,000 to 17,000 miles. That's a long way. It's a lot of fun to look at this as we look at crossing this Pacific Ocean again. And really, after Tahiti, anywhere, we can go anywhere. We may change our mind again. We do that all the time. So what have you been working on the last month here, dear?
I've been in front of my computer a lot in the last month ordering parts. We're actually here in the US Virgin Islands, and there's this thing here called on St. Thomas called Island Mail. It's literally like a physical location where you can have a mailbox, a mailing address mailbox, and get stuff shipped in from Amazon, Defender, all the US online stores without duties, without taxes, essentially. I literally took this whole suitcase, into town to pick up all of our mail. Compass? Yeah, that's pretty good.
We haven't had a compass in years.
I know, it's amazing being stateside. This is the old compass. Starboard we've had, the alternator has been dead for a while.
He also didn't tell me that.
But we run the water maker off that engine, right? So you might as well be charging while you have an alternator. So that's it's getting a nice new alternator. High output, 120 amp. Depth sounder. This is a cool little instrument. Check it out. So this will take your old depth sounder, which is analog, and convert it into digital, and then put it onto your NME A2000 bus. New GoPro. Last one went in the drink, we think.
It's disappeared.
It's disappeared. The kids, I think, somewhere along the lines kind of knocked it overboard. More fans. We're big fans of fans. Oh, bow roller. Nice. More fuel filters for the diesel. We've also ordered like a new camera because it's hard to order those and get those shipped into French Poly. You know, all of these things are not that critical, but they will impact your cruising plans and your cruising itinerary if you have to wait in port for months or weeks waiting for it to clear customs or get there with shipping.
Things I'm ordering here into St. Thomas are seeds for sprouting, so all different varieties of seeds to kind of give us a little bit of variety in greens. The sprouting seeds are amazing. It's super easy to sprout. I highly recommend it if you're on a boat and going offshore. If you land in like Marquesas too, sometimes there isn't as many fresh salad type vegetables as you expect, and sprouts can make like your little bit of quinoa salad seem just like a miraculously fresh or something. I don't know, that's not the right word, but it can make a kind of lame salad with quinoa and canned vegetables amazing. Salt kills plants. Like, they die, they turn black and they die. You cannot let the salt water get on your delicious herbs. And it is so nice having herbs. Like, we always have basil and mint, and I'm working on time. It's kind of a bit slow. And I'm gonna try rosemary next. But on the boat, like, if you don't grow it, lots of times it doesn't happen. Some people even grow lettuce. I haven't tried that yet. I need a bigger tub. Yeah, that's
There. Lights, action.
Yeah, lights, action. You're recording.
Okay. This is my spare parts area. It's under the kid's bed. I used to have like one huge bin, and then in Thailand, I just got more organized because I did a huge refit in Thailand.
I pushed him to buy the boxes. I said, you need to organize your life, my friend.
The thing is, like on the Nahoa 55, I'm gonna have a watertight door through the bulkhead. This will be a shower, and then there'll be a watertight door, like a dog door, where you can walk into the forepeak. And in that forepeak, I'm gonna have like a area with drawers, with lights inside the drawers with all the parts in it. And then the tools, which actually the tools aren't as much. I was thinking about this today. Like I don't have that many tools. You know, you have socket wrenches, screwdrivers, some specialty tools like extraction of bolts and making new threads, and it's really the parts that take up the most room. For engine spares, for example, belts, you know, lots of belts. This is for the water maker, more water maker belts, alternator belts, you know, these seals for the sail drives, the lower sail drives. Spare starter. If you don't have a spare starter, it's really hard to drive a catamaran in a straight line, especially from a standstill, if you can't start an engine. So I have a spare starter. We've gone through these a couple times, and every time I go through one, I get it rebuilt. So I have 3 starters. 2 are on the engines at all times, and then I have a spare one. It just floats around and gets rebuilt from time to time. Actually, I'll go over all the fluids I carry as well, because sometimes it's not a part that fails, but say a gasket, so you just need to be able to top off the fluid, whether it's hydraulic fluid or coolant or oil or sail drive oil. Those are the 4 fluids basically. Boat manufacturers put together the plumbing system on boats. There's all sorts of different threads, and then as different owners over the years fix those boats, you'll be in a place where it's BSP thread or MPT thread. Sometimes it's metric, sometimes it's imperial, you know, the not just the threads, but the barbs and those things. So you end up with a plumbing bucket that is just full of, you know, these kind of adapters and bits, and like some have been used obviously but are still good, but I keep them, you know, because I might need them again. So really important, carry sail tape. So this is heavy duty sail tape. We've procured some over the years, and Precision Sails has sent us some over the years. And it's not necessarily that you're gonna rip a sail, but sometimes it's just like managing chafe. So we have a chafe spot right now in our head sail because we have a new Seagull striker. So you can carry stuff like this, you know, you pick up stuff like this. A spring kit. You'll have springs in your water maker, you'll have water maker valves, you'll have springs for, you know, doors and latches, and sometimes you can take a spring and kind of like cut it down or make it similar, you know, so a little spring kit never hurts anyone. So O-rings are interesting because there's different, you know, diameters, and then there's different thicknesses. But what you can do if you carry, for example, crazy glue, you can basically create any kind of O-ring in a pinch. So say you have so this is a oil filter. Say you needed to remake this O-ring right here. Okay, so you might find the right size O-ring, but it's too big. So you could cut it. You would cut it obviously at the top here, and then put it together with some crazy glue, and then you got an O-ring that works. So buy gasket material on a roll that literally is for coolant, for pressure, like head gaskets, and then kind of make do in a pinch. We had a friend when we arrived in French Polynesia that had a issue with his carburetor on his outboard, and I just gave him some of this gasket material, and he was able to make it work. So kind of having things that are generic and be adapted, like an O-ring kit, like a spring kit, like a gasket material, is really useful. Last but not least, glues. So, you know, Highfield will ship a Highfield repair kit for your inflatable, but it'll have glues in there that are particular to Hypalon, right? You can't just glue PVC onto Hypalon. This is spare Hypalon that we've had from a previous dinghy. Epoxy putty, white epoxy putty. What else do I have? Steel putty. So say if you have a leak at your exhaust, at your engine, you could put some of the steel putty on. I carry like steel quickset epoxy for high temperature, those kind of things, you know. This is all water weld. Say you have a leak underwater, or I don't know, in your sail drive, hopefully not. And then again, this is all just to make cruising easier and better and less stressful, because all of a sudden you're not out of a water maker and you're rushing to port in bad weather or, you know, whatever. Having all this stuff impacts your cruising plans less, because yes, you're still doing boat work, stuff's still going to break, but you're able to fix it in a timely manner or patch it in a timely manner.
In the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere. All right, let's close it up.
What's your favorite tool? The one that you would never go on a boat again without. What's that thing called that you take the windows out of?
Sledgehammer.
Oh, come on.
Oh, I know what my favorite tool is. The multi-tool. Multi-tool is a great tool. Really looking forward to my workshop on the Nahoa 55. Having access to parts is just going to be revolutionary. Having a little table where you can grind and cut and have a little vise where you can, you know, make stuff, fix stuff is going to be awesome. You know, the new boat won't have as many problems, but we expect to keep it for, you know, 10, 20 years. So over time, it will start to need maintenance. So that's where that workshop comes in so handy.
As part of all the preparations that we're doing to get ready to cross the oceans, one of the things we're doing right now is just checking how our navigation and emergency equipment is working and making sure it's all in date, batteries are working, plans are active, and everything is sort of set up. Because if you don't set up, like the SOS, for example, before you go, no one's going to come. So let's talk about what we've got. First of all, our biggest thing is our EPIRB. If you're offshore, you definitely want to have one of these. They're not new. These are old things. Before you leave, I mean, you should definitely test it. We pushed the test button a minute ago, and it does indeed work. So these are really good. You always want to double check that you've registered them, and then they have the proper MMSI and all that stuff attached to them. Let's talk Starlink. Starlink is out there. There's really nothing in here. It just kind of broadcasts all over your boat. And Starlink is really our main source of contact and communication and information when we are out. However, we do have a backup. This is the Iridium Extreme from Predict Wind. Predict Wind is awesome, and we use Predict Wind all the time and couldn't live without it. But this Iridium Extreme through Predict Wind is also an invaluable resource. And I believe if you are in remote places, not even going offshore sometimes, but if you are just in a remote place, this should be something on board that you have on board. One of the really cool things about this is the SOS button. If you hit this, it sends, you have to configure it before, and I have configured it, but you can hit this button and it sends out a signal and you can get rescued. There is a whole team behind this button. There's actually a really interesting story that Catamaran MP, I think, put out about one of their friends who pushed this when they were having a medical emergency in Indonesia, and they were actually, a rescue in an anchorage was actually coordinated through this SOS button. So it's not just offshore rescue, it's inshore rescue. It's a really invaluable extra piece of safety equipment, in our opinion, that we will continue to carry even though we have Starlink available to us. From the Starlink to the Iridium to the EPIRB to your radio, which is really, if you're within radio distance with someone, is the main device you would use to call either a Mayday or Pan or whatever kind of emergency you might be having.
We found this this guy in Thailand who was so knowledgeable in terms of radios and cell phone networks and all that. Anyways, I walked into the shop and I've landed in the local VHF or UHF store. We're getting a new antenna for the top of our mast, and it's quite the little hole-in-the-wall shop. Pretty cool spot, man. He's got absolutely everything, and he's hooking me up good. Real good. This is cool. This is like, reminds me of the Philippines. What do you think of the shop, man? You like it? Since we had the mast down, we replaced the entire wire going from this radio up to the mast and the antenna. And he did a proper job. He soldered the ends of the wire onto the connectors, then heat shrank it, and it was just awesome. that shop. I don't know what he had going on in that shop, but there's some serious equipment in there. Old stuff, new stuff. It was pretty neat.
Our radio works so well now, it's incredible. There was actually an emergency in the anchorage we were in the other night, and we could hear everything going on. And I didn't realize it at the time, but there were many boats in that anchorage that actually couldn't hear the U.S. Coast Guard calling back. And we're in St. Thomas, so it's really close to a U.S. Coast Guard station. It isn't good enough to just rely on a handheld or whatever. When you're actually sailing and going places that are quite remote, you want to have a decent radio so you can message other people. Ultimately, we've decided to cross for a few reasons. It wasn't an easy decision. I've actually been sitting on the fence for probably about a month and a half now. When Ben first said that he really did actually want to go. And that's not like me. It's not that I'm afraid of crossing the ocean or don't want to cross the ocean. It's just that we kind of did a lot of that just a year ago. Yeah, it's a big decision. There are so many beautiful things we're going to miss in this part of the world, and it's a hell of a long way back. However, we loved the South Pacific. It's fairly easy cruising, a bit more remote than this area that we're in right now, which we don't mind. But ultimately, it's a lot closer to Nahoa, the new build.
When we get to Tahiti, a flight from Tahiti will take 5 to 6 hours. So that's a huge, huge difference. And there's a direct flight from Tahiti to Auckland. And then once we get even closer to Fiji, it's even closer. I think it's just a few hours. Yes, we're going to be at sea for close to 30 days at one point.
Yeah.
But we're setting ourselves up for a year, 2 years of absolute blissful sailing and being really close to the new build.
And I really do look forward to it. It is a special part of this world, the South Pacific. And I really did enjoy it. And it's a great place to have the children in tow. The cruising isn't too harsh or too hard. There's big distances in between the islands, but even here, like going up to the Bahamas, it's not really any different than like moving island chains in the South Pacific. It's like a 5-day run, 3 to 5 days. Actually, probably not even that far to the Bahamas. It's close here.
When we crossed the Pacific last time, we saw one boat, one freighter, and that's it. We had a few squalls, but in general, the Pacific Ocean stands for calm or gentle. And it really is a much easier passage than, for example, sailing down the coast of Madagascar or going around
or the Indian
South
Ocean.
Africa or across the Indian Ocean. So doing it a second time now, just kind of like, sure, why not?
Yeah.
What's the big deal?
30 days of activities for the children. In the meantime, we're cruising in the beautiful Caribbean, and I'm soaking up my last Caribbean fix. I might have to have a rum punch before I go, although I think I like the painkiller better. But it depends where you are in the Caribbean because they don't do those everywhere. But yeah, we're enjoying our time here in the Caribbean as we get all the parts ready to get going. And we're close to the US right now. We're actually in US waters, so there you go. As we wrap this up, I just wanted to say another huge thank you to our patrons. We're really excited actually to bring back the captain's logs as we cross this next ocean. I kind of like those juicy updates. I think I could fill them in a little bit. The tracker, of course, and we plan to do weekly updates from the Starlink. And luckily with the Starlink, of course, we get that fancy plan. Stay tuned for those weekly updates. We should be crossing sometime in mid-April, and yeah, a lot to do before then. So stay tuned. And thanks again to everyone for following along and just watching. And patrons, we'll see you this Sunday for that live stream.